Hey guys, it's Brooke from The Vintage Gardener, and I am coming to you from West Hampton, New Jersey. So, I had mentioned before that I was closing. I was closing on both the sale of my house and the purchase of a new one on October 10th. The best laid plans of mice and men. Yeah, it didn't go smoothly. While the sale of my house did go smoothly, that went forward as planned on October 10th. The purchase of the new house did not. The new closing for that is November 15th. So I know you guys are probably wondering, where are you? Wait. Where are you living? That's where I'm with my aunt. I'm staying with my aunt, uncle, and cousin until that day. It's kind of convoluted story, and I don't want to make this video too long, but basically the owner of the house that I'm purchasing has to rewire the house. The house has what's called knob and tube wiring. The knob and tube wiring was the first wiring they started doing in houses when electricity first came out, and it is very different from what we have today, and it's very dangerous. First off, knob and tube wiring doesn't have a ground, so there's with wiring, there's three wires. One is the grounding wire. Well, knob and tube only has two wires, so obviously there's the risk of an electrical shock. The other thing is that back when electricity first came out, houses, we didn't have these kind of electronics. People had a light bulb and maybe a single outlet. They didn't have computers and iPhones and all this other stuff, all this draw on electricity. So most houses, when they first came out with it, were only wired for 30-40 amps. Today, just so if you were not aware, new houses being built today are wired for 200 or 250 amps. So it's a lot higher. And so another issue with knob and tube is that, as time progressed and people need more and more plugs, people did splicing. And of course, the stuff is not up to code. And another thing is that sometimes knob and tube, I'm sure you guys have heard of circuit breakers, so that if, drawing too much current, it trips it so that you don't cause a fire. Well, with knob and tube, I believe they use fuses. And so sometimes people would pop the fuses out. For example, if it's supposed to be 15 amp, they pop the fuse out and put a 30 amp on it. So that line could draw a lot more power than it was supposed to. Obviously, that's a fire hazard. So, as people needed more and more outlets, they would splice onto the old knob and tube. So if you've ever been into an old house, if you've ever seen outlets that only have two prongs instead of three, that's why they have two prongs, because that's knob and tube wiring. It's only two wires, not third for grounding. And so another issue that you would frequently run into, well, I've seen in some of the houses that I've been purchasing, is that you have a house that appears to have had updated wiring, and it's three prongs and looks really good. But if you have, a home inspector, particularly somebody who's a lot more thorough, there's a little device they used and put in each plug to see whether or not it's a grounded outlet. And so when I was looking for a house the first time around, which is back in 2010, 2011, there was this one house that appeared to have updated wiring, and when the home inspector started pulling out the plates off the thing, he realized that they were still running knob and tube, and it really wasn't a proper outlet, properly wired. So it's a fire hazard. If I remember correctly, knob and tube is covered in some sort of plastic, so it can't catch. It's flammable. So when you have old houses, there can always be a danger that it's behind the walls. They didn't follow the wiring guides like they do today, so it was very haphazard. And sometimes with old houses, it's hard to know whether or not they got all of it. Well, because it is so dangerous, most homeowners insurance, actually, I think there may be some high risk policies, but they're super expensive, more than I can afford, because I think they were like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a year, which I totally can't afford. But most insurance companies will not cover a house that's got knob and tube. The seller has to address the issue. So there was some back and forth on that. I will probably do a written post on that because it's way too complicated and it's far too long for, a 10-minute video. And so she has to do it. And she is going to do it. So based upon what I had seen in the house, I know some of the knob and tube had been removed. I was thinking that probably there's maybe a room or two that has a knob and tube. Well, I just got the estimate for what was being done, and this house was built in two parts. The original structure was built in 1840, and then the back part of the house was probably built, I would say, I don't know, maybe early 80s or something like that. So the wiring in that portion is fine. And so it's a lot. It has to be, like I said, the original structure has to be completely rewired. And so the electrician is saying it only will take 5 days, which to a certain extent is probably true. That certainly falls in line with some of the things that I have seen online. In addition, this is an old house with balloon framing, so rewiring houses with balloon framing, my understanding is a lot easier because basically you can stand in the attic, weight the wire and kind of like drop it from the attic to the basement. So I'm hoping that maybe the electrician will have a cancellation with some of the earlier scheduling and we'll get to mine sooner. The sooner, because I'm doing wrong. I love saying, gotta love staying with the relatives. But it's I'm 40, so it's kind of weird to be like out of your house and, you kind of get into a routine and, like right now, Bumper Snoot's not with me. My mom came up to help me pack and move, and she graciously offered to take Bumper Snoot back with her to North Carolina. And so that's where he is. He loves my mom. They have already gotten there. My mom said he's handling it. His appetite's a little bit off, but that happens every time there's like a change for him. But my mom intends to, fatten him up a bit. I guess it doesn't matter if you're a real baby or a fur baby. You're always going to gain weight when you go to grandma's, right? I had told my mom, I was like, Mom, please don't let my dog be 10 pounds heavier when I get him back. Because he's nice and trim. I'll have to put him on a little diet. But, so that's what's going on. So like I said, I'll do a more detailed post. On one hand, I'm happy that the wiring will be addressed. From what I can see, it appears that the electrician is actually going to be going behind the walls, like actually cutting into the walls to get the wiring out. The one good thing about it is, in my opinion, it's probably one of the more thorough ways to actually address it, because it looks like he's going to remove every single bit of ungrounded wire, which is great. Because number one, sometimes you don't know what the new wiring may be spliced into. So if he's going behind the walls, then definitely he's gonna see all that and address it. But the other thing is that this house doesn't have insulation, which is not surprising because one of the things about knob and tube wiring is that it's got to be open air. So with all these old houses, one of the reasons they had such poor insulation is because if you put insulation over top of the knob and tube wiring, it can catch on fire. And so with this house, even though I knew the knob and tube was going to be addressed, I wasn't really quite sure how they were going to address it. And to me, there was always the outside concern that maybe some parts of it got missed. But the nice thing about this is that if he's removing all the wires, I can retrofit the insulation and do like a blow-in insulation, so that would help with the energy cost, and so that does make me happy. So I will probably do a written post to give you a little bit more detail, because I'm sure this was pretty quick. But I will see you guys in the next video, which I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't know what it's going to be about. It just may be me rambling a little. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later.